Man, my toy room is a mess. Well, toy garage. New, old, vintage, stuff in the air, stuff in the wall. I did sell a lot of my vintage, but I also kept some pieces like this awesome Sentinel. Why not talk about that today? Why not talk about why I sold my vintage toys next on Toy Games.
Games! Games!
I really don't know. Well, I do know how I'm going to attack this video today because there's a lot to it, but I don't want to spend a half hour yammering about old toys. Even though they mean a lot to me, I don't want to diminish it. We're going to do it in maybe 3 or 5 parts as to why I did it. And we're going to start with number 1, and that should be, or probably is, the most obvious. And that is, of course, it's money. But before we get into the money aspect, we have to go over a few things. And obviously, the elephant in the room is, well, if you sold off your whole vintage collection, why do I see vintage toys? Now, I didn't sell every single piece. I will get into the where and the whys. I kept certain pieces. That'll be the last chapter. But just for the interest of what the topic is, I'm going to have different toy lines that I still do have from my vintage collection. Like I said, I didn't sell every piece. Now, also, well, vintage varies from person to person. This is a Battlestar Galactica figure that isn't worth that much because he's very common. That's a vintage Mego. This is Adam Powers. Now, most vintage collectors aren't looking for Adam Powers. You can find him cheap. Most people think vintage, they automatically just assume old Star Wars, old He-Man, Mego. But, you know, vintage could be old metal toys, old Disney toys. Hey, this Keaton Batman from Kenner, this is now over 30 years old. So that's technically a vintage toy. It's a very broad topic, a very broad definition, and that goes across any type of collectible. Vintage cars. You know, a 79, I don't know, Buick Regal is now vintage, but some people might still think a Ford Model T is true vintage. Very broad term. So for this video, when I say vintage of what I sold, it's really going to be that 78 Star Wars to 1990 Ninja Turtle wheelhouse. Now that that's out of the way, the number one reason, well, not number one, but the first reason is the obvious one, money. Vintage toys still hold more value than... Every once in a while, you'll get lucky and you'll find like a McFarlane Bane that you got for $40. And sure, he jumps up to $150. And that's a nice resell if you're in it for that. But with vintage, you know, I sold a bunch of my old G.I. Joes for near $50 a figure. So that was quite the coin I made. And partly because I wanted to make room for new stuff. I got to think about it like this. I've been collecting forever. Literally since I've never stopped collecting. I've kept figures since my childhood. So I have never stopped collecting. You know how much space that takes up? Even if I was balling and had a mansion, you know what you do? The more money you have, the more things you buy. Why do you think millionaires have to buy 10-car garages to fit them 10 cars? So even if I had a bigger house and was balling, I would still have all the rooms filled up. And for me, I don't want to be, I mean, I do have excess. I do have a lot, but I don't need everything. And the vintage stuff, I like the idea of selling a figure to get a figure. When I got into Hot Toys, when I got into Mezco, I saw the price points and was like, damn, I want a few of these. But they're expensive. I don't want to spend half my damn paycheck to buy one figure. So I sold some vintage. Last year, I sold a bunch of old G.I. Joes. I sold a bunch of Ninja Turtles. Sold some other stuff to buy Mezco. A few Mafex that I'd never had before. I got back into all Marvel Legends that I didn't have. I thought I was content with my Toy Biz Marvel Legends. And I wasn't. The new ones look so much better. And you sell to get new. It's funny. I got this little Ash figure about 10 years ago. Now he's like a Grail Ash. You know, I don't really care about Ash anymore. So you sell it. You get $50 for something. And that's like the ecosystem of your toy collection. Let's talk about reason number 2. You know, one of my favorite things as a collector used to be getting a new figure and taking a picture with the old figure just to see the juxtaposition, where they came from, and how far the toy industry has come. I really enjoyed that part of the hobby, and that's something I do miss. When I got that new Elkhorn, I was really sad that I still didn't have my old one. So yes, there is some regrets. There is definitely some regrets with selling your vintage. And that's why I am going to keep my original Star Wars figures, because I just think some vintage toys I just can't get rid of. There's also something else I'm going to show you that's cool. You know, me and a few friends locally do a toy show, and I made a comment. It got published in the Epoch Times. I'm proud of that comment, and it is my quote was, "Old toys are like a window to the past, and you will open that window and you'll unlock a memory that you haven't thought of, and that toy will put you in that time frame." It was something like that. I don't remember exactly, but you might see an old R2-D2 and remember like being with your dad or your mom or going to the movies, or the first time you heard that click. And it just will, you know, it's a real pure feeling. And there's something about it. Something about being a child, obviously, is pure, and you're not like bogged down with the responsibilities of an adult, and it's a fun time in your life. And toys will bring you back to that. So I kept these guys. That toy show, I sold a lot of my vintage there, and I had a lot of fun doing so. And it's fun to see someone in person complete like a figure they need, or a figure that meant something to them. Not everyone collects like us. You got to remember, some people out there have some restraint and just might want one toy they had as a kid, and that's really cool, and to be a part of that is cool. So when you're selling on eBay or Marketplace or Mercari, you might be doing that. You know, you might be selling to someone that needs to complete a collection, or selling to someone that just wants to relive having that Darth Vader and Luke. There is something to it. There's some charm to selling your vintage collection. But responsibility of having vintage toys is huge. I have this C-3PO out in the elements. This beautiful gold is going to wear off. This vac metal will wear off because I have him outside in the elements. And I'm going to have to live with that. So when I sold my Silverhawks, it was like a load off. A real, like, oh, I don't have to worry about when I move, what pieces to lose. If I damage this cape, this vinyl cape on Vader, his value goes down. And that's a responsibility. Owning vintage toys is more of a responsibility. You can't really manipulate and play with these things as you would, you know, a modern Marvel Legend. If I break this was a $5 toy at Ollie's. What do I care? If I break C-3PO, it's a big deal. If I break this little Care Bear, nothing's going to happen. So there's a responsibility to it, and I just didn't want that responsibility anymore. I wanted that weight off my shoulders, and I felt like, well, am I getting everything out of the line that I should be getting out of it? Am I displaying it properly? Does the lighting look good? You know, you just can't have a vintage figure on the shelf and it won't look good. You need to have good lighting. You have to make it presenting like a piece of art. I don't like that responsibility anymore. And I sold. So I have kept, reason why I kept some things, this I actually had, this is my childhood. This isn't the new Masterverse, no articulation. I had this when I was a kid, and I found a picture of it with me, so I felt that'd be cool. Might frame that picture and put this next to it. I thought that would be fun. This is a new Origins, and that's another thing. They remake figures and remake toy lines. This looks just like the original, aside from not having a squishy head, but it's posable. And I don't need two of the same figure. I don't have the space, first of all, and I don't want to be a toy hoarder. Why keep a bunch of these in a tub somewhere in my basement? Well, you can make some money off of it. It's a regret you might have, but it will go away. It's not, toys shouldn't be stressful. And that's pretty much the bottom line to all this. It was responsibility, the stress of having it and not doing something with it. You don't know in 20 years if toys shouldn't be always about value, but if you can use the figures you have now to make money to go into your new toys, that's an ecosystem. Why not? You don't know where this market is going to be 20 years from now, so why worry about that? So in closing, really we're two factors. Making money, which sounds, I don't know what it sounds like. I'm not going to say it's unscrupulous. I mean, I didn't sell at some crazy reseller value. But the big thing is responsibility. It really is responsibility, I guess, in space. But like I said, if the more space you have, the more you will buy. And I want to keep these things in bins. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please subscribe. If you can, drop a like. Likes are the only way that these videos get seen. Some kooky thing with YouTube. I guess it makes sense. If a video has likes, the algorithm picks it up and assumes people want to see it. No one likes it. They assume nobody wants to watch it. And I'd like to think that my videos are worth watching. Take care. Have fun. Don't forget, Thursday, we're going to be back on Yojo Jerk for Mega Powers Podcast. I will have another video before that. See you later.